For this problem, we're shown a rectangular parking lot, and we're told that the rectangular parking area of the shopping center shown has an area of 40,000 square yards. And the length of the shopping center parking lot is 200 yards more than twice the width of the parking lot. So we're asked to find the dimensions of the lot. So it's a good thing. They give us a little picture, but it's always a good thing to draw our own picture. And so we have our rectangular parking lot here. And we know that the area of this parking lot is 40,000 square yards. And we know that the length is 200 yards more than twice the width. So our width here, we can call X. Because again, we want only one variable. And so we know something about the length in terms of the width. And so if we call the width X, then we can write a formula that will tell us the length. The length is 200 yards more than twice the width. So 200 more than, so 200 plus twice the width, 2 times the width. So the length then would be 200 plus 2 times the width, and we call the width X. So now we know the length and the width of our parking lot, and we know the area is 40,000 square yards. We also know how to find the area of a rectangle. We do that by doing length times width. So in this case, our length is 200 plus 2x, and we're going to multiply that by our width, which is x. Now notice we do need parentheses here because we're multiplying the whole thing, the entire length, the 200 plus 2x, that whole thing has to get multiplied by x. Without the parentheses, it just implies that we're multiplying that last part by the x. And we don't want just the 2x, we want the whole length, the 200 plus 2x multiplied by x. So we do need parentheses, we do have to distribute. So we can distribute, and that gives us 200x plus 2x squared. And we know that that's equal to the area, which we also know the area is 40,000 square yards. So we can use the 40,000 instead of a. And so now we can rewrite our formula. It's a quadratic because of the squared on the x. And so we need to get it equal to 0, which means we've got to subtract the 40,000. And so when we subtract 40,000 from the left, we get 0. On the right, just to rearrange and put it in the order we like, we're going to have the 2x squared plus 200x. And then we subtract the 40,000 from that side as well. So now we've got our quadratic equation. We've got it in the order we like. We know how to solve quadratic equations. We either have to factor or use the quadratic formula. Now, when trying to factor this one, we notice that with this 2 out front, it's more difficult to factor. But because they all have a factor of 2, then we can divide the entire thing by 2. And again, as long as we do it on both sides, we keep ourselves legal. So we're going to divide by the 2 on the left. We're going to divide by the 2 on the right. On the left, 0 divided by 2 still gives us 0. On the right, remember, we have to divide everything by 2. So the 2x squared divided by 2 gives us just x squared. 200x divided by 2 gives us 100x. And negative 40,000 divided by 2 gives us negative 20,000. Now we can look at factoring, or you can use the quadratic formula. If you don't see how it factors, you can use the quadratic formula. You will get the exact same results. If you do see how it factors, that's usually a little quicker. And so this one does factor. It's going to factor as x plus 200 times x minus 100. So notice when we're factoring, we're looking for what two things multiply to give us negative 20,000 and add to give us a positive 100. Notice that's what happened here. 200 times a negative 100 does multiply to give us negative 20,000. And if we add them 200 plus a negative 100, we do get 100. And so we did factor it correctly. Again, if you could not find those factors, you can use the quadratic formula and you will get the exact same results. And so from this point, we set them both equal to 0. So x plus 200 is equal to 0, and x minus 100 is equal to 0, which gives us x is equal to negative 200 and x is equal to 100. Now, notice we're looking for the dimensions of a parking lot. We're looking for x to be our width. Obviously, we cannot have a width that's a negative 200 feet or yards. That doesn't make any sense to have a distance that is negative for the side of a parking lot. So that one we can rule out, and we see then that x equals 100. Remember, x is what we called our width, and so we now see that our width is 100 yards. And then we also need to know the length. And so when we look for the length, notice that we know that 200 plus 2x was equal to our length. We know what x is, so we can substitute 100 in place of x. And then simplifying, we get 200 plus 200, which gives us 400. And so now we know that that's our length, 400 yards. And so be careful when entering those. Notice it asked for the length first, and it told us that the length was the 200 more than twice the width. So the length is the longer one. It's the one we just found to be 400. And then the width was what we called x, and we found x to be 100. And so there's our answers.